Over the past few years, it really feels like our global supply chains have been in a state of some chaos. But what if all that chaos isn't random? What if the breakdowns we are seeing are actually a violation of the fundamental laws of nature? Today, we are going to look at supply chains but not through the lens of a business textbook. We are going to look at them through the principles of physics. We are pulling our insights from the book Flow by Rob Handfield and Tom Linton to really get to the bottom of what makes the world's best supply chains tick. So, let's just jump right in with a pretty big claim. The author suggests that one of the biggest logjams in our entire global system isn't some giant ship stuck in a canal. It's something a lot closer to home, our own habits, and this deep, deep love for our spreadsheets. And that right there raises a huge question. I mean, if our old ways of doing things are actually holding us back, then what are the real principles that make everything work? The things that actually get microchips and medicine all the way across the planet? To figure that out, we really need a whole new way of looking at things. Welcome to the supply chain behind everything. I am Daksh, and while we usually go behind the scenes to uncover the fascinating journey of how things reach you, today we are exploring some fundamental changes that supply chain needs right now. Okay. So when you see a supply chain fail, it's so easy to just blame one thing, right? A storm, a ship getting stuck. But the real issue, more often than not, is the design itself. I want you to think of a rigid pine tree in a hurricane. It seems strong, but under enough pressure, it just snaps. But a palm tree is flexible. It bends, it swivels, but it survives. For way too long, we have been building pine trees. Now, the common solution you always hear is resilience. But what does that really mean? Well, it often means adding tons of wasteful inventory and backups, kind of like reinforcing that pine tree with concrete. It's clunky, it's super expensive, and honestly, it's inefficient. And there's a much better way, and it's inspired by physics and biology, creating not just resilience, but actual immunity. So, if our old designs are totally flawed, where do we even look for a better model? Well, we look to the most successful system that's ever existed, nature itself. I mean, how has nature perfected the art of moving things, water, animal, energy, for millions of years with just incredible efficiency? Seriously, think about it for a second. How does a river find the absolute most efficient path to the sea, carving out this complex network of streams and tributaries? Or how do thousands of starlings fly together in a murmation without a single collision? The answer is they are all flow systems, and they all follow a universal law. This is the secret, the constructal law. The constructal law of physics, developed by Dr. Adrian, is defined as the law of evolutionary design. It posits that for any finite-sized flow system to persist over time, or to live, it must evolve its configuration in a way that provides easier access to the currents that flow through it. This is the big aha moment. It basically says if any flow system, whether it's a river, a bolt of lightning, or your own circulatory system, will naturally evolve its shape to make it easier for stuff to flow through it. Think about a tree. Its branches and roots don't just grow randomly. They spread out, creating this incredible network that gets more and more efficient at capturing sunlight and water. The shape and the structure aren't just random. They are the result of flow. A system actually evolves to improve its own flow. That river basin we saw, it isn't just moving water. It's constantly, slowly redesigning its own riverbed to move that water more easily. This is evolution in action right there. So, if nature is always evolving towards better and better flow, what happens when we design systems that actively fight against it? Well, we get jams, we get clogs, and that, my friends, is the story of the modern supply chain. For decades, the whole philosophy was about chasing the cheapest possible labor. This is called labor arbitrage. It basically means moving your production to whatever country has the lowest wages, just to shave a few cents off the cost per part. This old model led to ridiculously long times and bloated, inefficient inventory. But the flowway isn't focused on the cheapest part. It's obsessed with velocity, with localization, and with the lowest total cost. And what's really fascinating is that the old logic is just completely falling apart. I mean, look at this chart. Wages in those traditional manufacturing hubs like China are on the rise. The whole economic advantage of stretching your supply chain halfway across the globe for a tiny labor discount is evaporating fast. So, what's the result of decades of ignoring flow? You get this: a supply chain that looks like a tangled up bowl of spaghetti. It's just needless complexity, with parts taking back and forth trips across oceans and warehouses where inventory just sits for months. It's a system that's almost perfectly designed to jam, not to flow. Okay, so that's all the theory. But what does a supply chain designed for flow and immunity actually look like when you put it to the ultimate test? Let's check out an absolutely incredible story from the height of the COVID crisis. This challenge was just immense. In March of 2020, there was a critical, desperate shortage of ventilators. General Motors partnered with a small ventilator company called Ventec, and they had a mission that seemed frankly impossible. Scale up production from just a few hundred a month to tens of thousands and ship the very first one in just 1 month. And this timeline is just wild. It's shown the power of velocity. Day 1. They had their first meeting. Day 2, the GM team is already on the ground at Ventec, studying every single one of the 500 unique parts. And then exactly 30 days after that first meeting, the first ventilator ships from a brand new GM production line. This is what flow looks like in the real world. So how on earth did they do it? They didn't try to cram this incredibly urgent mission into their massive, rigid corporate structure. No way. As the project lead, Ryan Aaron, said, they basically created a nimble little startup inside the giant corporation. They prioritized speed and flow over bureaucracy, and that, right there, made all the difference. That whole GM and Ventec story is not just a great story about a crisis response, it's a blueprint for the future. And this is what the authors call supply chain immunity. It's not just about reacting when a disaster hits. It's about having the ability to see it coming, to understand its precise impact, and to have a playbook ready to go. Building on that idea of immunity, there's another really fundamental force at play here. One that is literally redrawing the map of global trade as we speak. And believe it or not, this force can actually be explained by a law of physics from way back in the 17th century. Newton's law of universal gravity. Turns out, it's not just about apples and planets. It's a perfect metaphor for one of the biggest trends in the modern logistics. Think about it. Just like gravity pulls objects together, there's this invisible force pulling supply chains toward the lowest point of total cost and the highest efficiency. And for years, we all thought that just meant finding the cheapest labor, no matter where on earth it was. But now, with shipping getting more expensive and speed becoming everything, that center of gravity is shifting. It's getting closer and closer to you, the end customer. And look, this isn't just some theory. The Blackstone Group bet a staggering $18.7 billion on this exact idea. They bought up a massive portfolio of urban warehouses. Why? Because to get your package in one day, like even 1 hour, the physical stuff has to be pulled by this gravity into your city, right into your neighborhood. So we have these powerful, almost natural laws. flow, immunity, gravity, but none of them work without the most essential and definitely the most complex part of it all, the people who are actually running the system. Hey, remember the quote from the beginning about the spreadsheet? Well, the answer isn't to replace people, it's to upgrade their tools from spreadsheets to critical thinking. Real resilience, it turns out, comes from building up these five skills: the curiosity to always ask why, the creativity to see new solutions, the skepticism to question the data, the analysis to weigh the evidence, and the logic to make smart decisions really fast. When you boil it all down, the future doesn't belong to the supply chain with the lowest price tag, but to the one that's the most resilient. By understanding these natural laws of flow, immunity, and gravity, and by empowering our teams with critical thinking, we can build systems that don't just survive the next big shock, but actually thrive in a world that's always changing. So let's look at the key principles we can take away from this to design the immune fluid supply chains of tomorrow. Well, an immune supply chain really has four key attributes. Flexibility means designing products with parts that can be easily swapped out. Traceability is about having a real-time Google Map style view of every single part in your system. Responsiveness means empowering local teams to use that information to make smart decisions fast. And finally, global independence is all about designing regional networks that can keep running on their own even if another part of the world suddenly goes offline. And look, this isn't just about massive corporations. This whole way of thinking, of seeing the world as a series of flow systems, it applies absolutely everywhere. Think about the processes in your own work, with the traffic patterns in your city, or even just how you organize your kitchen. Where's the friction? Where can things flow just a little bit better? At the end of the day, the most successful systems aren't just built, they're allowed to evolve. They find their most unique, efficient path just like a river does. So, the question I want to leave you with is this: in your own work, in your own life, are you building dams that block movement, or are you designing riverbeds that encourage and guide the natural flow? If you enjoyed today's deep dive on the book Flow, a like, share, and subscribe to this channel would really help other supply chain nerds like us find the show. I am Daksh, and this has been the supply chain behind everything.